everyone thinks New Hampshire is income tax free. Well, it is income tax free if you're a W-2 employee. However, they have this very interesting business tax that most people don't know about, most people don't talk about. And sometimes the truth is you either do business with the devil that you know, because sometimes that's better than doing business with the devil that you don't know. Welcome to the Maguire Enterprise Podcast with Jeff and James. And it's been a minute since we have been on here. We have quite a few things in the works, quite a few things going right now, business-wise. But we wanted to jump back into this because bringing content and value to other business owners, franchisees, and things is super, super important to us. We want to help any way that we can. So feel free to reach out. But today, Jeff and I are going to be talking about the ups and downs, goods and bads of working in different states, owning businesses in different states, and thinking about starting businesses in different states. There's no right or wrong answer to this. There's just potentially good practices, potentially good tax savings. And ultimately, not everybody can just, move to a random state and start a business. If you live in, let's say, New Hampshire, it might be difficult for you to move down to Florida or to Texas or to somewhere like that to go start a business. Now, maybe you do, which would be great, but that may not be possible. So maybe just starting it off, Jeff, we talk about what some very prominent people do and have done in the past. The first one that comes to mind for me is a guy by the name of Patrick Bet-David, incredible businessman. And we're actually going to his conference in September. So if you are interested in business conferences, and I'll just give him a quick plug, the Vault Conference, September 4th through the 7th. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to be there speaking as a huge keynote speaker. Obviously, Patrick Bet-David. Last year was Tom Brady and Mike Tyson. Yeah, and Will Guidara. Really great lineup. But one thing I'll say about the conference, which is, off topic here, but this is one of the best conferences I've been to that's strategy focused. There's a lot of conferences you can go to that are like, rah, get you pumped up, get you excited, get you motivated. And then you leave the conference and you're like, okay, now what do I do? Because there's just so much information. I mean, we got a 200 and something page manual last year, book.
Yep.
That they printed out. So incredible. Check that out. Vault Conference. I think we have like 7 or 8 people going from our team and from our party, our group. So it's going to be a blast. We're excited about it. But talking about Patrick Bet-David, and I think you know his story too, Jeff. He started out in the insurance industry, insurance world in California, one of the most liberal, tax-heavy states in the country, probably top 5 worst places to start a business. Sorry if you're in California. Minimum wage, taxes, all that. He then moved after a while. He was getting taxed by the state, getting taxed by the county, getting taxed by his local municipality. He eventually moved to Texas, I believe. And I think he was only there for 2 years, maybe?
Yeah, not super long.
And then from Texas, he moved down to Florida. And we can dive into some of that later. But he's the first one that comes to mind. You got somebody else, Jeff, that you were thinking about earlier?
Well, just in general, what we're talking about is when you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, thinking about the states you incorporate in and then do business in is really, really important. And we quickly realized this because we did a lot of business in Washington State and the state of Arizona, and we could see drastic differences between the two states from an employment standpoint, from just like basic city regulation standpoint, from taxes to how the local
Governance.
Governance. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. How the local governance was set up, how they managed the cities from a safety standpoint. And so we understood and start to see the contrast between Washington State and Arizona, and us growing up back in the Northeast and then doing business, in the state of Massachusetts, the state of Maine, the state of Vermont, and New Hampshire. We've been able to really see some stark contrasts between the different businesses. And being an entrepreneur and a capitalist, when you start to do business in those states, you start to really understand where the state leans and what they believe, and then that's how they write their laws, and their laws favor certain kind of philosophies. And so that's what we're here to really talk about. And like James was talking about with Patrick Bet David, what's cool is he just picked up his family and moved, and then said, well, Texas is great, but I really want to be a state, that's completely free. And I think that's what we want to, just discuss what we've gone through and what we've done, and maybe give some insight into what we've learned and the challenges, and why potentially certain states are killing themselves. And I think it's intentional. And so we can get into all of that, but
yeah, but that's why it's something very, very important to consider before you really launch a business and continue to launch. I mean, so right now we're launching the Pickler, which is a luxury indoor pickleball facility. The best, by the way, the number one brand, if I can just be so bold as to say that, top brand. But we've also selected some other states outside of the New England region that we're going to be opening in. Obviously, New England we're very comfortable in. We know the laws, we know the taxes, the regulations, things like that. Pennsylvania and Delaware are two other states that we are moving into. And if you're outside of the city of Philadelphia, you've got a lot more favored reasons to be there. If you're inside the city of Philadelphia, a lot of business owners in the city of Philly, and they hate it. So you've got to really understand the dynamic of, like Jeff said, the local governance, the local community, the local city, but then also the state that you're in as well. Here's one thing we didn't know about New Hampshire until we really started digging in and opening businesses there, which we tried to do a little bit of research, but we could have done 10 times more, is that everyone thinks New Hampshire is income tax free. Well, it is income tax free if you're a W-2 employee. However, they have this very interesting business tax that most people don't know about and most people don't talk about. So you have to dig into those, and we didn't know that until we opened up, obviously. Again, we're not perfect. We definitely failed in many areas, but now we're looking into those things before we open a business. And sometimes the truth is, I think you'd agree with this, maybe not, Jeff, but the truth is sometimes it's you either do business with the devil that you know, because sometimes that's better than doing business with the devil that you don't know. Meaning, even if the state of New Hampshire has this business tax, that may outweigh you opening down into Massachusetts, where minimum wage is $15, $16 an hour, and they have those other taxes and so on. So there's no perfect place, at least that we've found. Even Florida has its own taxes and things that you're going to have to pay. But doing the due diligence and understanding that before you jump in is definitely crucial.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And listen, we're doing business in 1, 2, 3, 4, and I don't know. I mean, Delaware probably is blue for sure. I just don't know if they're as bad as Massachusetts or Vermont or Maine. But we're doing, I would say, 80%, 90% of our business is in blue states, which are Democratic states, and usually their philosophies on capitalism aren't super great. The governors are usually pretty restrictive and kind of pro-socialism, which we can talk about. But the reason why we've chosen those states, one, to James's point, like we are very familiar with those areas. The opportunity is really good because we're first to market and the competition is very limited. And depending on the type of business, you can still navigate a lot of the BS and a lot of the nonsense that the blue states will kind of put on you as a capitalist, as a business owner. And so you do have to be creative. Now, granted, would we love to do most of our business in red states, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, Utah? Yes, 100%. But sometimes, due to the things like I just mentioned, it's not always possible or the best at that moment, right? So you definitely have to do your due diligence and know what you're getting into. When you do get into some of these states that are very pro-employee, and I don't mean that in a bad way, it's just these states have very aggressive laws and philosophies, and those in the governor's office are writing rules and laws, working against you because they're not really pro-freedom. They're not pro-capitalism. They're not pro-making the state a booming free enterprise. They're about constricting and controlling. And we'll get into kind of what we've dealt with in Vermont being a real challenge for us led. Obviously, Bernie Sanders is up there, and we've got some interesting information on Mr. Byrne.
The burn, man, baby. Feel the burn.
How he's burned Vermont, and we'll give real tangibles about how he's really screwed Vermont over. So yeah, it's just super, super important to be aware of the states you're getting into, but also not to be afraid of if you do get into a tough state. You have to pivot and maneuver and get creative. But as entrepreneurs and capitalists, we always find a way, and we always will. So,
yeah, absolutely. And the other big move here pretty recently too, and I don't know if this is necessarily 100%. I think there's a lot of reasons for this, but you've got Elon Musk recently taking his incorporations out of Delaware, which I think is mainly because the judge didn't want to give him a $50 billion salary or something.
$56 billion, paycheck.
But hey, the guy started the business. He invested in it. It's technically his company to a certain extent. Obviously, it's a publicly traded company. But if the guy wants to make a ridiculous amount of money, he should be able to make a ridiculous amount of money. No judge should be able to tell him that. And of course, that comes from the liberal side saying, hey, capitalist, what are you thinking? You need to share that wealth that you've worked so hard to create and your intellectual property. You need to share that with everybody else. Well, I don't necessarily think so. I think the last thing, and then we could jump right into Vermont and some of this other stuff. Last thing I would mention too is that business owners and people with a vision and dream do not get into business to fail or give other people their money. They get into business to make profit, to make a very good income, and then obviously do stuff with it. Jeff and I are not all about the money and all about that. We are very generous and very giving, and we love paying our team and our people and donating, giving back to charities and organizations. But it's our money, and we should be able to decide what we do with it. In my opinion, in the last 4 years, our taxes have not been used very wisely with funding these wars and all these other things. And so we want to control more of what we earn and what our business produces. We don't want other people who clearly have a very good track record. And I'm talking both sides of the political aisle here. Neither side is very good at spending money. If there's a budget of 50 trillion, they're just going to spend 50 trillion instead of saving and investing it. And so, if you have more business owners, more business people making those decisions, they're going to make, in my opinion, more wise decisions as opposed to these career politicians who have been there for 90 years, like the Burn Man. So
Yes.
yeah, so
Speaking of,
yeah, speaking of the Burn Man, let me just set the table here for a second, and then I'll turn it over to you. Vermont. Why did we decide to go into Vermont? There's a couple reasons. I'll kind of give you one of the biggest reasons, in our opinion. When we were opening crumble cookies, we wanted to control a region or a territory. We wanted to protect ourselves from other franchisees, other crumble franchisees, and other competition. We wanted to be able to control and collect all the sales that were going to come to a crumble. And so to do that, we needed to be aggressive and buy these licenses in these territories. And if you have more questions about franchise licensing, you can Google it. There's a bunch of people out there that talk about it. We talk about it in other podcasts as well. We'd be happy to explain, give you more information, shoot us a question. But we wanted to control the region with these licenses and control all the sales. And we knew from our track record, anytime we opened a store in a new state that hadn't had a crumble, or there was a crumble, there wasn't a crumble within 100 miles, an hour or 2 hours, it always crushed it. It always did super good in sales, high volume, and brought in a lot of profit and did really, really well. So that was really one of our big reasons on why we wanted to venture into Maine. We're the only store in Maine. We're the only store in Vermont. There's a couple other in New Hampshire, but we mainly own all of New Hampshire. And so that's why we did that, is to control that region in that area so that we weren't sharing profit with other people. So that was one of the big reasons. But Jeff, I'll turn it to you for some of the Vermont stuff here.
Yeah, being in Vermont, new brand. This was 2023, started in February, built it out, opened in April. Super trending brand. Everyone heard about Crumble from New Hampshire, Mass, Maine. So people were driving down very, very excited. So when you have an attractive brand, you do drive a lot of interest, not only from a revenue standpoint, people buying stuff, but from an employment standpoint. So we had great success in the very, very beginning because there was a lot of hype and interest around the brand. Now, if you get down to it, the job responsibilities and tasks are no different than the grocery store across the street, or Starbucks, or Panera, or Jersey Mike's. But because Crumble has a great image and a great following, we were able to draw a lot of interest and employment in the beginning, which was exceptional. But quickly over time, once individuals got into the routine of the job, and it's not the appearance of TikTok, right? It's in the actual work, and you got to sweat a little bit. We started to see attrition and struggled with retention issues with some of the team. And we quickly realized that was very common in a lot of the retail places of business in Vermont, in Burlington, in Williston. And because there are not a massive population of people living in the state of Vermont, you are limited, and that makes it very challenging. So when you have isolated areas and small states, the population of people to pull from an employment standpoint is limited. And all of the businesses in the area are really fighting for the same people. If you're in retail, you're going after, high school, college, maybe just out of college for the most part, right? And then even for those higher level positions, again, they're all going after the same group of people. And so we've had some challenges with hiring and retaining people, even though we pay a really, really great wage. James can talk about kind of how we're paying an entry-level position. Now, this is a very entry-level position, customer service, cleaning, you're baking, but there's very structured recipes and whatnot. So this is not a very technical job. You're on your feet, you're having fun. It's a very, very, again, typical kind of first type job. But we pay beyond that. I know we're probably paying upwards of between our wages and then the tips. The team is making on average probably $19 an hour or 20. Does that sound about right, James?
It's
Around
actually
20,
high. It's actually higher than that.
2021?
We saw for the first time. So Vermont minimum wage is what 14 something, I believe, is Vermont minimum wage,
I think it's
and
1367
or
right
1367.
now.
You're right,
Yeah.
1367 is Vermont minimum wage. And our last pay cycle, our team up there earned $10.11 extra in tips. Obviously, that's due to a lot of the customers, right? But that's due to the product and bringing customers in, right? And that's on us. That's on our marketing, branding, and so on. The team is there to help produce the cookies, right? So, long story short, yeah, they're making $23 to $24 an hour. That's a $50,000 a year salary job if
Yeah.
you work 40 hours a week. $50K. These kids have
As
no bills. They have no rent. They have hardly anything, and they're making 25-ish an hour. Now it's not $10 every time, but the last 3 or 4 pay cycles, basically this probably since February, they've made more than $8.50 an hour extra in tips. So yeah, you're looking at $20 plus an hour.
as a
all
16,
in cookie dough.
16, 17-year-old. I think that's phenomenal. Like, that's an incredible wage. Even at 2024, I know you could say, well, cost of living's up, inflation's up. It is up. But for a teenager to be making $18, $19, $20 an hour, if you were to look at Chick-fil-A, Panera, Starbucks, Jersey Mike's, Jimmy John's, they're all going to be paying $17, $16, $17 an hour for sure. And then as you get into shift leads and some more responsibilities, sure, you're making 20 and plus. But to be an entry-level individual, be making $18, $19 an hour, that's phenomenal money.
Mm-hmm.
And even with great pay, great culture, fun brand, we have struggled. We have struggled to retain people, retain higher level management, which we can get into a little bit, as well as mid-level management, and then your bakers, your team members. And they're all really important. But the question that James and I have been trying to rack our brain in, and we know some of the answers, is why? Why are we not able to attract really good talent? Why are we not able to attract decent talent? Why is the flow of people, the pool of kids, the pool of people who are inspired and have character and work ethic and are excited to make money, why is it limited there? And we have had conversations with former team members that aren't on the team, which we're happy to talk about, just general kind of conversation and the mood of Vermont and the philosophy of Vermont. And being up in Vermont now for over a year and a half, living up there, we have grabbed and grasped an understanding of the state of Vermont that I think it's just a bigger picture that we wanted to talk about in the country. And there's some things that we have learned and we want to share. And I'm sure, James, you can jump into a couple of them. But I will say this before I turn it over to James. We are optimistic. We know we can get through the challenges. We learn, we pivot, and we understand that some states are going to move in a direction we don't like. And then that's just up to us and you as the entrepreneur and the business owner to decide, do you want to stay? Should I go and put more effort and resources into that state, knowing I'm going to continue to have challenges? Do I need to change my business model? So there's obviously a lot there, but.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, let's talk about the nitty gritty. So here's kind of how this unfolded. We had an incredible manager, Amber Hall in Southern New Hampshire, that helped us open this store. Great culture builder, great attitude, great person to lead the team. She'd never opened a high volume store before. She had helped us open 2 or 3 stores in the past. And she was managing one of our stores in New Hampshire. She said, hey, I'd love to go up there for 8 months, help open it, help build it, support you guys, support the team, as long as you support me. So we did that. We opened it. She crushed it. Incredible, incredible job. Our highest volume store at the opening, and she just nailed it. And so fast forward 8 months to September of 23, we then knew we needed to bring on a full-time manager. So we started hiring. I think we started the process in like July or August.
Yeah, July, I think, yeah.
July or August, we started looking for people. We didn't find somebody until like mid to late August. After interviewing 15, 20 people, one of the people that we found, I actually thought was really, really good. Went through 3 or 4 interviews. Turned out she ended up not being very good. Ghosted us completely, which was just crazy. And that happened a couple times where decent interviews, and then, you tell them you're going to do a background check, and then they ghost you. It's just like, okay, this is strange. We always do background checks for managers or for leadership teams. So important to protect your team in that aspect. We've definitely found some challenges that we don't want to bring into our stores. Not that, we wouldn't necessarily bring somebody in like that, but you got to be careful with your team. You got to protect your business. So those took us literally 2 months to find someone. We brought an individual on who had some good experience at places like Publix and some other fast food. Publix, he was doing the restaurant there, the substation, and managing all that food ordering. So he had some good experience. We typically do 5 interviews with management and leadership people to really try to get to know them more. Anyway, brought this individual on, and he had some of the technical skills, but come to find out he didn't have the leadership skills. He didn't have the culture building skills. He didn't have the ability to keep the team on track and things like that. So he ended up washing out on December 31st, we had no clue, just hit us with 2 weeks right over Christmas, and boom. So myself and Jason were up there, and when I tell you, it was like a dark rain cloud was hovering over that one location. Like, that's what it felt like when you walked in. It felt like somebody had literally just had their cat murdered in front of them, and everybody's head was hanging. Everybody was doom and gloom. Everybody was so mad. It was like, what is going on up here? Like, it's cookies, it's customers. How can we be this negative, this down and out about our life? We're making good money. Again, the wages were about the same at the time, still making in the 20s an hour with tips, the team. And so really it came down to leadership. So then we started hiring. Myself and Jason, our regional manager and partner, Jason, who's been on the podcast many times, basically lived up there. Jeff came up, I think, a couple times too, but lived up there for all of January, on and off, all of January, all of February. We found someone else who we thought might be able to take over, never in a GM capacity, but maybe an assistant manager. Come to find out, his work ethic and character and integrity were just not what they needed to be. They weren't high enough. They were very low. When we weren't around, things weren't getting done. We were the drivers of the business. There was no leadership. And so he washed out, and he gave us 12 hours notice when he quit, which is probably good because I had already written up a termination letter for him. I didn't get to give it to him, but he quit that day of. It's funny. He quit because of what did he quit because of? Oh, an allergy in the air. He was allergic to something in the air at the store. Very strange.
It was called being allergic to work.
So he was allergic to work, and he quit with no notice. So then we're back up there again in, what was that, beginning of April, I think? I think that was April.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, mid-April.
So we're now taking our time. The store has been complete.
We took our time, and I want to make that clear. We took our time, and this is what's challenging is when you are operating in these socialist states. Vermont is a socialist state, and if you look at Bernie Sanders and his philosophy and what he's all about, and I'm happy to read some of the things he's all about. And I know it sounds crazy, but a few women who are consistently in the political realm, who are running the state, can have a huge influence over the narrative, the philosophies, the laws, who move to the state, who's attracted to the state. And over time, it can breed this culture within the state. Vermont has a culture. Now, again, there's wonderful people in Vermont,
100%.
but there definitely is this culture and this I'm not sure exactly what you call it.
No, it's a culture. I mean, I think you got it right. It is what people live, eat, and breathe. It's them day to day.
And it's, to be honest, a lot of the youth have been indoctrinated to think business, capitalism, money is kind of the enemy.
Let me give you an example. Pause for a quick second. Let me give you an example. The week we opened the store, we never make 100% perfect hires anytime we open a business, anytime you start. There's always a few that slip through the cracks, right? But you typically find them quick. You find them within the first week as long as you're in the business working, right? And so within the first week, actually within the first day, we found like a group of 3 guys who they didn't make it. I think they lasted 3 days. They had to go. Then there was a couple young ladies, and one of them in particular, and Jason's going to laugh when he hears this. If he hears this, I'm sure he will. This one girl said out loud in front of the entire team, we were talking about business owners and, the amount of hours we were working or something. And this one girl said out loud, she said, well, you guys don't really care a ton about the business. All you care about is grabbing the cash at the end of the night from the drawer so you can get paid. We were Jason and I looked at each other and we were like, what? That's what you think? Like, so that's exactly what you're talking about. That's the culture. That's what, and this girl was maybe 20, 18, 19. That's the culture that has been ingrained in this young lady's mind, is that business owners are savages. Business owners only care about greed and money and taking the cash out of the drawer at the end of the night. That's it. So that's a prime example, and we probably have 50 examples of that.
Yeah, there's many, many examples, and I know we're going on a tangent here, but when we're interviewing and recruiting, going back to what James was saying, we are very thorough. We do 4, 5, 6 interviews. We do background checks, reference checks, but the pool and the applicants that we are screening, it's hard to find folks who align with our values, our character, and our philosophy on freedom. Honestly, it really comes down to that. And that's why it's been partly extremely challenging finding a great manager and even at times some great individuals working in the store, because their philosophy does not align with our philosophy. They have a socialist philosophy. We put out an incredible package, manager compensation package.
I've never seen anything like this.
I would have taken the job in a heartbeat, a few years ago, because we put in just an impeccable compensation package together to run one crumble. Now, this is a bakery. You typically have 6 products. They're all the same products, same base. We just sprinkle in some different toppings typically. I mean, there's more to that, but this is not a restaurant. It's not a sit down establishment. And we are offering, I would say, for the state of Vermont, in the food retail, we were offering a top 10% kind of compensation package with tremendous upside.
I mean, the salary we were looking at was what, 65, 66?
Yeah, 66,000
with bonuses, quarterly bonuses of up to 500 or 600 a month. So, that's an extra 5,000 to 6,000 a year. Now you're in the 70s, and profit sharing.
Yeah, profit sharing, health insurance we would be paying 75% of the premiums for them. PTO, sick time, vacation lump sum, so they get an additional 40 hours after their first year. Obviously, opportunities to grow. So their compensation package was probably like north of 80. Okay, 80,000 to run one location. And we have not still been able to find that person. It doesn't discourage us. We're navigating and we're working through this, but it just shows you that even money and opportunity, really what America's been founded on is freedom, is the ability to grow, to expand, to build a family, to build a legacy.
Yeah,
Those
opportunity.
values, those things that we've interwoven in our job postings, our interview questions, how we articulate and communicate, we've woven those things in because that's who we are. And we know those things, those values, those characteristics are what make a business successful. And so I'm just going to say it. The reason why we have struggled with attracting a lot of people is because we're not willing to sacrifice and hire socialism. We're not, and we never will.
Jeff,
And
that's too much. Say that again. What did you say?
yeah. No, I'm very passionate about that. Is we won't hire socialism, and the ideology and the philosophy of socialism, and you give everything to everybody, and work ethic isn't rewarded, and character really isn't rewarded, and it's all about how I feel. Well, that's not how life works. And we believe, and we as business owners and entrepreneurs, we believe part of our job is to steward the people that work with us and for us, and to help them grow as individuals, to be contributors of society and not to bring society down. And I 100% reject Bernie Sanders and everything he believes in and everything he does. And I blame him and a lot of his cronies for destroying part of Vermont.
Yeah,
Highly
100%.
highly talented people, and not, I won't say educated, because a lot of educated people, this will offend people, but a lot of educated people are very woke, are
Dumb?
very left.
You could just say kind of dumb.
No, I'll
Not
just say they lean left.
Yeah.
A lot of them. I'm not saying everybody. We aren't highly educated, so that's why
Hey, speak for yourself. I got my bachelor's degree.
I do too.
I'm educated.
I know I'm
Some
rambling here, and I'm going to kick it back to you, but I believe the reason why Vermont struggles with really talented people, and James, you can comment on this, is because Vermont does not attract talented people. Yeah. The state does not attract people of high character. And I'm not saying there are, of course, wonderful people in Vermont, but as an employer, we're seeing it hand in hand. We're dealing with the workforce. And a state thrives off of an economy. And how does the economy work? Well, the economy drives off of business, production, agriculture, all of the things that then create jobs, that create families. And so I don't see the state of Vermont, people driving and flocking to the state of Vermont. Well, why is that? Why are people not flocking? Why are the best of the best going to Florida, going to Utah, going to Texas, going to Nevada? They're not flocking to Massachusetts. I mean, of course, yes, sure, you skew the numbers, but people aren't driving in droves to the state of Vermont for opportunity. Yeah. They know what they're going to deal with if they go to Vermont.
Yeah. And it's the worst. I've lived there long enough, literally lived there in Airbnbs long enough that I know I would never, ever, ever consider or recommend that anyone moves to the state of Vermont ever. Even Hampshire is too close to Vermont, to be honest with you. Not a bad state, but still too close. But here's a couple things Jeff was saying. These are some of Bernie Sanders' beliefs and what his people look at. Listen to this. And what does this sound like? Implementing national rent control. Abolishing ICE and CBP.
What's that? What's CBP, James? Just so people know.
But Customs and Border Protection. So abolishing basically Customs and Border Protection, any border security that we currently have on the southern border, on the northern border, just getting rid of all of it, letting illegal immigrants just run wild and overtake the country, essentially is what his belief is abortion as population control. He also admires Fidel Castro, the USSR, Gorbachev, Marxist, loves Marxist things, people, communist. What are some of the banning fracking, banning the ability for the U.S. to get oil, to get natural gas. Get rid of that. Ban that. Done. We don't need that. Let's rely on OPEC and Saudi Arabia and Venezuela from where we get all. Let's not have any of our own. And we actually don't have any of our own because we sold it all. Increase taxes on the middle class, specifically the middle class. What? Taxpayers funding political campaigns. Taking our taxes, your hard-earned money, and using that for political campaigns so that these cronies can stay in office even longer. What? Like, is that just crazy?
You just have to dive into it a little bit to really understand.
Here's the last one I'll say is eliminating billionaires. Getting rid of billionaires. Making them taxed even higher than they already are. So listen, these are just a few things that really concern us. And we're working through it, but with those beliefs, they go down to other people in Vermont. So yes, Vermont is a very dark place, in my opinion. It will literally suck the soul out of you. It's just very interesting. I'm a very energetic, upbeat person. Jason is as well. Ashley, who's another regional manager of ours, is also very upbeat. She's been helping us out up there as well, just crushing it, her, Jason, and myself, and now more Jason and Ashley. They're very, very upbeat. But when we first got back into that store after we removed our most recent person in April, it was a dark rain cloud. And we had to bring the light. We had to bring the sunshine and the light. We had to stay positive 100% of the time. And that store, I will tell you, that store and the culture in that store is incredible now. It just takes a couple good leaders with really good attitudes who can control their emotions in front of the team and things like that to bring the team back up. We have some incredible team members there now. We have a bunch of good shift leads that have been coming in. And, like Jeff said, not everybody's perfect, but if the leader keeps the energy up, if the leader keeps the pace, if the leader brings the fun, right, then things would change. If the senators in Vermont would change, if they would bring the fun, bring the energy, bring the life back, bring the capitalism back, that state, you could turn it around quick. And it may not be so dark, rainy, and snowy there all the time either. It's kind of like Narnia, where it's always winter and never summer.
Yes.
So those are some interesting
to come in.
Yeah, exactly. Those are some interesting things, but you've really got to take this stuff into consideration. We have never had a harder time than that store. And like I said, it has turned around. We are in a really good spot. We have some incredible shift leads up there who are really able to run and manage the day-to-day operations, with Jason and Ashley kind of working remote. Now they still are up there 3, 4, 5 days a week sometimes, monitoring, managing, making sure things are happening properly. And more than anything, bringing the fun. But the team is catching on to that culture, and they're getting excited to be there again. And it's really about being picky. Like Jeff said, we hire very slowly now. And, earlier on we hired slow too, but we're even more cautious now, especially with Vermont. We have an incredible HR director and recruiter, Jacob, who has done a fantastic job at getting creative and working different angles to bring in the right team members and the right people. And so those are some of the things that we're doing. We actually just started for the first time. We'll let you know how this goes, maybe give an update if it works out. Just started working with a staffing agency specifically for this store. See if they can work some other angles that we maybe can or we don't know about to bring in the right person with the right culture. But one thing we're doing, and I'll turn it over to you here too, if you want to come on this, one thing that we're doing that we came up with, that Jacob and I talked about, that I think is so awesome, is we are having our current management team give us a summary of themselves, what they like to do, their work experience, who they are and the culture and character that they have. 3 to 4 sentences they're going to put together, just a quick snapshot of themselves. We're going to give this to this hiring agency and we're going to say, listen, here's who we have. This is the person that we're looking for. We need this type of person. We need this person with character and integrity. Giving someone the ability to see a wide gamut of people and staff that we have, but to get a little insight of them, their personality and their culture, I think is really going to help them laser focus on the person that we're looking for.
Yeah, you got to architect, put a profile, right, on who you're trying to hire. And super pumped about it. And we're not, just so everyone knows, like, we are excited about finding that person. We won't ever give up. All of these challenges that we face from a recruiting and hiring standpoint, it just makes us better, to be honest. We don't get down in the dumps and get discouraged. We will face the BS for sure. But it just makes us better, makes us sharper, makes us more creative, makes us more thoughtful. Jacob, our HR director, has done an incredible job getting grassroots and local in the high schools and really finding and pulling out the best talent, locally in these high schools. So you have to get very creative. We've exhausted over a dozen different recruiting strategies and tactics. Some work, some don't. We've spent a lot of money on recruiting. So you have to get very creative and thoughtful. You cannot get discouraged because that's just not the way. The way is not giving up. One thing that I will challenge any sort of business owner or entrepreneur is, if you are going into these states, you just have to be prepared. You have to have a strategy and resources and a really strong leadership team. Because to James's point, people tend to gravitate towards leaders, people who are optimistic, people who have a great attitude, people who see the good in others, see their gifts and talents and pull it out of them, people who are encouraged, people who want to work for people who are stable in the head and in the heart. So I just want to challenge, the business owners and stuff that if you are going into some of these socialist states, you just have to be prepared and reach out to us. We're happy to share more in detail on the various other things we've done.
And it doesn't mean you can't open in these places. You just got to think twice about it. That's all we're saying is we think twice before we do it. I'll be honest, I don't know if there's ever going to be a state harder than Vermont with recruiting, to be honest. I mean, maybe Washington State, maybe California could be pretty janky. We definitely don't plan on doing business out there, staying on the East Coast for sure. But you just have to think twice. What's best for you and your business? And you may be grinding it out early on, but are you going to continue to grind it out forever because you put yourself in that situation? Maybe, maybe not. We're not going to quit. We don't accept failure, and we'll dive back in if we have to. That's obviously not our job or our goal. Our job is to grow the business and not be balling cookie dough really anymore. It's to be growing and expanding our businesses. But if we have to, you can bet that we will be back in that store doing whatever it takes to take care of business. Thankfully, we have an incredible leadership team, and it's just growing even stronger. That they handle that for us so that we can expand, grow our businesses, take them with us, compensate our team better. I would say that your most aggressive capitalists, your Elon Musks, your Patrick Davids, your Donald Trumps, these guys who are capitalists to the core probably pay better than any other people in business ever. That's a bold statement, and maybe it's not true, but just knowing a little bit about who they are and the things that they've done, I bet you some of them are the best at compensation, the best at time off, the best at lifestyle to those people that do serve them and work with them and grow their businesses with them as well. Maybe not, but I'd be willing to bet some money on that. So yeah, that's what we wanted to catch up with about today. We're going to be getting back in these podcasts on a regular basis, dropping them once a week, if not maybe a little bit more, as we come up with some more ideas. And as we move to open some of our pickleball facilities coming here in late 2024, we're really excited about that. Listen, if you've got some questions, if you've got any comments about what we're talking about, if you want to get on the podcast and get interviewed, and you run a small business or you're in franchising, let us know. We'd love to talk with you. We'd love to connect and see what we can build as far as a partnership relationship, or maybe your story is going to resonate with somebody else who listens.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're all about, is giving some value and creating that community and culture of capitalism, freedom, and of small business people that freaking love to crush it.
And I'll close with this, just giving value. So James, myself, and our business partner, Magda Sochka, we have our own bookkeeping and accounting firm, and we're helping dozens of business owners right now make more money. That, again, is our number one goal for that company and that business. So if you are a solopreneur, you have a business, you have one employee, you have 50 employees, you're a franchisee, you are doing your own business, we can help you manage your financials extremely tight and make sure you have the numbers in front of you right after the month ends, so you know exactly how your business stands. But we've got 15 or so clients and 35, 40 entities under management right now. We're looking to take on more people. So if your bookkeeper sucks and you're not happy with how they're handling your back end when it comes to managing your financials and getting you your profit and loss and your balance sheet, we can help you. And we are happy to refer you to our existing clients because they are thrilled and loving the services we're providing. We're doing it better than most. And so there's a little plug for our company, and DM us or reach out to us if you want to talk to us about that. We'd love to help you out from a bookkeeping standpoint.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys on the next one.